same. That the game isn't played that way. You've got to stay on track. Walk on, watch your back. Walk on, stay on track. Walk on, watch your back. Walk on, looking around you.
Well, welcome to the Social Engineer Podcast number 6. We made it number 6 so far. We're at Washington, D.C. at ShmooCon doing a special edition of the podcast with a whole room full of people here. With our panel, Dave or Relic.
Hey!
And Mutz or Maddie.
Hi.
And I introduced Dave as Dave and you as Mutz. Isn't that weird? I don't even think of you as Maddie.
Oh, does he have a different name?
Oh, Dave?
Relic.
Sackman.
Yeah.
We'll get into Sackman very shortly.
This,
The Sackmaniac site is going
I
to be
even had
going
like 3 people review my slides too. I mean,
Sackmaniac. That was got to be the most epic fail of the whole con, really. And Elwood, how you doing, Elwood?
I'm doing good.
And myself, Chris or Logan. So we're doing our first podcast together. Usually we do it over the phone. We're in a room together with a bunch of people. So let's start off with our normal thing. Some of the new stuff on Social Engineer this month. Mutz will love this topic. The Backtrack podcast with the dev team has completely wrecked all other podcasts that we have. It has overtaken everything but the first podcast that we did with downloads. It actually beat the last podcast within a week. And then right before we came to Shmoo, it beat the it took number 4, 3, and 2 podcasts out of the rankings. So thanks for that. But it was really good. A lot of positive feedback on that. People feel like they know you now. How does that make you feel?
All warm and fuzzy.
Hang on. Yes, you're right. You do feel warm and fuzzy. You know, you can't see this because we don't do a visual podcast, but Relic is taking his watch and putting one of the lights right above him into my eyes through the reflection of his watch. I'm going to throw a spoon at him right now.
Really threw a spoon
and I really
at
did. I threw a spoon at him. Let's talk a little bit about the Sackmaniac so we can understand where that's coming from. Relic released the 0.4 version of Set here at Shmoo
Yes,
with
I did.
a massive update on that. When's the SVN going to be ready?
SVN will probably open up next week or the week after. We exclusively released it on Backtrack 4, so all you need to do is an update and upgrade in order to get the latest tools on that. So Set 0.4 is released on Backtrack 4 as of right now. It was actually opened up as soon as my talk started, so special thanks to MGen for that and getting that all knocked out for the package to be synced up for that. So, but overall, the talk went really good, I thought. Mr. X, creator of Aircrack NG, decided to throw some snowballs at me.
Very
listen,
well done.
you
Very
know-
well done. I was surprised.
Mr. X is from Belgium. He thought that they said snowballs instead of Shmoo balls. That
Yeah.
was his excuse, right, X?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's
One
here
thing,
with us.
one thing I've learned over the time though is be very, very good at dodging. So I've doing very much Matrix-like moves in order to
Oh,
dodge.
no.
the snowballs.
You know, I know you want to play that game, but Mutz has a picture of you going like this and a snowball hitting you in the face.
You get no visuals.
I know. Well, that's true.
Well, listen, I was a little shocked because I thought he only had one. So I went and actually picked the snowball up and crushed it on my face. And then as soon as I did that, there was another snowball getting thrown at me.
Yeah. He had like 6 in a bag, if
yeah.
you can believe that.
No old bards in that one.
No.
But,
I mean, he pulls a bag out of his backpack full of snowballs.
Yeah. Well, it was good. It was good.
Yeah, it was great.
Who would have
But-
believed that Mr. X would turn out to be the silent assassin?
Yeah, no one. And then he did it again today at the Exile speech because someone yelled out, "Where's Mr. X with the snowballs?" And he runs. I mean, I literally saw Mr. X run over people. And then he runs outside, he comes back with like 3 snowballs and pelts the Exile with snowballs in the middle of his speech. I'm like, the guy is ridiculous. These Belgians.
I'm telling you.
So give us a little, like, what's the biggest and best update coming with Set 04?
Yeah, Set 04, I had someone contact me probably about 6 weeks ago, a guy named Thomas Worth, and he had a new Java applet attack that he was going to be publishing this book, but was a big fan of the social engineering toolkit and wanted to incorporate it into Set itself. So over the past few weeks, we've been working back and forth on actually integrating it into the tool itself. And the applet itself is amazing. What it does is, if you knew the prior version of the applet, it relied very heavily off of VBScript. So, it was very specific to certain versions of Windows, and, if you were an administrator, it didn't work very well. There's a lot of constraints. This one itself is actually browser sensitive, so it'll see if you're running Linux, OS X, or Windows, and it'll specifically target the operating system based off of that. And Seto.F4 now supports pretty much universally all operating systems for payloads. So you can set up a Windows payload, a Linux and OS X payload all at the same time, and whoever decides to browse the website will automatically become compromised by the Java applet. And what we also added into it was the ability to self-sign the certificate. So if you see if you're familiar with SET, you go and clone Google.com. What will happen is you can also sign the certificate from the publisher, the name, all that good stuff as Google as well. So when they go and see the certificate warning, it'll say, hey, Google wants to run this Java applet. Do you want to run it? As soon as they run it, it compromises a computer with a Metasploit payload. And then what's really cool about it was it automatically redirects you back to the originally cloned site. So if you clone Google.com, as soon as that payload executes, it'll actually redirect you back to the real Google.com pretty much seamlessly, so that the user doesn't even know he was even at a bad site. So all that right now is a pretty powerhouse on O.4 that we released. And the one other major thing that we released as well is, if you don't want to use the Java applet attack, you can also now incorporate the Metasploit client-side attacks in it as well. So you can clone the website and automatically rewrite the website for you to incorporate any Metasploit client-side exploit that you want to. So like the latest Aurora attacks in there, a lot of the other Internet Explorer bugs, Firefox bugs are in there. So you just select those and it'll automatically go and inject it into the toolkit for you.
Yeah, that's sweet. I got a chance to play with it before Shmoo. Working unbelievable.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is going to be devastating, I think, as far as the tools go for the market. So, but I think the biggest story that we didn't talk about, which is your new website.
I was hoping you were actually going to skip past that.
No, because I mean you moved from The Pen Test to what we thought was Sec Maniac.
It is SecManiac.com.
But your slides told us that it was Sac Maniac.
Well, listen, the logo design was from DigiIP.
Oh, now you're going to put his name out there and blame the poor guy,
You
right?
can't blame someone else.
I mean, you know.
Well, so long story short, the site design is great. I mean, DigiIP did a phenomenal job on it. I didn't catch the whole skull was being used as A's in Maniac, and they also replaced the skull with the E in Sec, so it ended up looking like Sac Maniac. So I pretty much got ridiculed throughout my entire talk.
Ridiculed?
Sack man.
I'm a Sac Maniac.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm notorious for bloopers for some reason. A couple of weeks ago,
Life partner.
Yeah, a couple of weeks
Life
ago.
partner. Oh, that's a great
A
one.
couple of weeks ago, I meant to say I was in a prior life, ... I was a partner, and instead I didn't put any periods in there, so I pretty much read I was a prior life partner, or I had a prior life partner, something like that. So I got ridiculed relentlessly for that. And I went through this. I literally went through the slide deck. You have no idea, probably about 30 times, making sure there wasn't anything like that in it. And the first slide,
Epic fail.
yeah.
But I really never seen someone get heckled as much
Oh, it was great.
as you got last night.
I enjoy. To be honest with you, though, that it was fun for me because it lightened the mood up. I wasn't nervous, and it was a lot of fun. So
I mean, you got it from like 10 minutes before your speech started
yeah.
till like 10 minutes after your speech ended.
And then people were talking about it afterwards.
Oh yeah,
so,
and then today I hear people going, "Hey, there's Sack Man." So it's definitely going to be interesting for you.
Yeah,
You have to change your nickname.
Well, just so you know, I already talked. DigiIP was watching the streaming live as it happened, and he sent me an email. I was like, "Dude, I have no idea. I'm so sorry." He's like, "Here, attached to the new logos."
Oh, he changed it already. That's great. Oh man, you got to keep the Sack Man somewhere. That's awesome. That is great.
So that's changed. So we're good on that one. But overall, I thought the talks went really well. In fact, I've heard a lot of comments from people coming up saying, "Hey, the Fire Talks have been a lot better than even ShmooCon talks themselves."
Yeah.
I mean, the Prez did a really great one.
Prez did a great one. Yeah.
Shodan and Iron Geeks was pretty funny. So I mean, overall, I think the Fire Talks were a pretty big hit this year around.
Yeah. So we'll see how they keep going. That was good.
Except for Tom's talk.
We'll get to that. So before we move on to that, we want to also talk about our sponsor this month, Spy Associates. They gave us some really, really cool stuff to demo at the con. A couple of things they gave us. One was a bug sweeper. It sweeps for all types of bugs, even like the new Infinity bug, laser bugs, sound bugs, and hidden cameras. So we swept our rooms.
When you brought that out, that is like one of the coolest instruments I think I've ever seen. The thing's just a handheld device. It has all those things built into it, and like modules you had to. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. We were scanning everyone's rooms. We were hoping the feds did something here. We were thinking, we're in Washington, D.C. There's got to be some kind of bug hidden somewhere in the hotel.
What did you say, Chris? If you actually found a bug, what I would be able to do?
I said that I would like you more.
We won't go into the exact details, but I was really hoping for a bug this time around.
Yeah.
Didn't you scan some guy and the thing beeped? And
Yeah, we were standing in line for the tickets, and I was showing Elwood the device, and I pulled it out, and I'm like, yeah, look, scan it, and I went over to this dude, and it went beep, 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 and I'm like, well, that's odd. And I went away, and I went back, beep, 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 and I said, hey, every time I scan you for bugs, it goes off. I said, you a Fed? And he said, give me a shirt, and we won't make an issue of it. So he now has a social engineer shirt. Yeah, that went over real well. And the other thing that they gave us was this awesome little mini DVR device that had like 3 or 4 different types of cameras. The one that Lutz is playing with now is one that looks like a button. And they're micro cameras, but they have amazing quality on them. So we actually modified our ShmooCon badge, and we put the button in the nose of the moose, and we were able to walk around and record some things. So it worked out really, really nice, and it has a nice little hidden mic on it. So we're able to capture some social engineering attempts on video.
Yeah,
So
really awesome gadget. Really awesome gadget.
Really, I think that for a social engineering audit, this would come in very handy.
Yeah.
Because you can record things that are going on around you or in front of you. You don't have to worry about paying such close attention.
Every month, I mean, they just send really cool stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm amazed at the amount of technology and stuff that they have that you can actually use in a physical type of test. So
Yeah.
great guys.
He told me that they got some other things that are just going to make this stuff look like garbage.
No way.
So yeah, that's what I said. Like, I don't know what you can do that's going to make this stuff look bad. So I'm excited to see it. They sent us sunglasses, but all of us tried to use them, but they weren't really usable. So that's probably the only device that I got so far that I wasn't really.
They fit me fine.
Well, that's because you're like a miniature person. Yeah, I'm a big man, so you're warm and fuzzy. So we're gonna play with this a little bit more of these devices, but we're gonna do a write up on the framework like we do every month on these devices, so you can look for them and get a link to them on aspyassociates.com. Is there anything else new on the site? We're talking about the newsletter. Elwood, your article this month got rave reviews. I made a comment that we should make Elwood's articles primary and mine secondary because mine always get okay reviews and Elwood's get rave reviews. And he said, "Why put the filet mignon before the salad?" Yeah, that was his comment. So that hurt me a little bit, But so Elwood won't be writing anymore for the newsletter. So sorry, all you listeners out there that like his writing style, he'll be missing. But no, good one on the policy stuff. There. So our guest this month is Tom Eston. Tom is here at Shmoo with us. He gave a speech on Social Zombies Part 2, I guess it was. So there was a Social Zombies one at DEF CON?
Yep.
And also his site is socialmediasecurity.com. So Tom, maybe you can tell us a little more about yourself. I know you do the Security Justice podcast also.
Yep.
So we've listened to that a few times. We really appreciate your shout-outs on that also. And it's nice to have you here with us. So maybe you can just kind of fill us in a little more about your research, your interests, things like that.
Sure, yeah. So socialmediasecurity.com is a open source community that I started back right around DEF CON last year, trying to get people involved in areas of social media security. So when we talk about social media, we're talking about sites like Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, even sites like YouTube. Anything that has kind of like a collaboration technology that you can share things with your friends and interact with others. So we've gathered some research from some of the other security researchers that do similar things. So, for example, if you've heard of the Harmony guy, he's a researcher that does a ton of work, exploiting Facebook applications and other things. So we have featured a lot of his research, as well as a couple other researchers like Aviv Rath, who did the month of Twitter bugs last year. And then we have an awareness side of the community. So we've got videos and guides that people can watch and download if they want to know how to set their Facebook privacy settings, for example, or walk them through what the recommended settings would be when you're using social networks.
Awesome. So that's Social Media Security, all one word,
Yes,
.com.
correct.
Okay, so definitely check that out. That sounds like a lot of interesting stuff. While we're sitting here, we also have another guest walk in, Sean Moyer. Glad we got you.
Hey there.
You drink your coffee?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're back with the living now.
Mostly among the living at this point.
Mostly. Sean, you did a lot of research. I know you had some DEF CON speeches. You've been on ShmooCon a few times, but a lot of research into information gathering and social networks. I know you have a lot more than that, but it's
Yeah,
really
sure.
our topic for this month.
Yeah, and so Tom and Kevin have kind of taken the torch at this point, but Nathan Hamill and I did some stuff. Kind of one of the first talks about that topic a couple of years ago, like I said to Jim, it's something that I don't really talk about quite as much anymore. But it's not that anything's gotten any better. It's still many of the same problems, if not more so, at this point. So actually, if anything, it's become more pervasive now with the number of people on various social networks. So all the same things are kind of still there.
Tom, is that kind of what you were talking about this morning in your speech?
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of carried on from what we were talking about at DEF CON, just about, how many people are actually using social networks and how it just keeps increasing. And, to Sean's point, it's just, more problems, I think, are just more evident now, the more that we see people using these things.
What would you say is the biggest threat in using social networks for people out there today? Maybe both of you guys can give us your opinion on that.
One of them, I think, is just the amount of information that people post. People have no idea that this information can be gathered and it can be correlated and it can be used against them. I've seen everything from people posting, names, addresses, phone numbers, social security numbers. You name it. Confidential company information, code. You can pretty much find anything you want
On social networks.
Absolutely.
Tell them about Blippy.
Yeah, Blippy. Blippy is awesome. Blippy's a social network that popped up a couple months ago. It allows you to tie your bank account information or your credit card information.
Oh my God.
And it'll actually show you, say, I spent this much money at Amazon or at GoDaddy. That was an example I had. People, registering their domain names, and you can actually see private registration. So, and their name is tied to it. So now, how a private registration is, no one's going to know when you do a WhoIsLookup, and no one should know who that is. But now I do if I go to Blippy. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind
So
of
their
fun.
bank accounts, credit cards, all their purchases tie into this social network.
So you can
now.
see patterns. You can start seeing, okay, this person is buying this and that. And then I also brought the example of Foursquare, So you got geolocation tracking. Now let's combine, Foursquare with something like Blippy, and you have the ultimate, tool for profiling somebody.
Wow, that's crazy. Blippy, spell that with
PPY.
BLIPPY. So check .com.
Yep.
So I have to definitely check that site out.
It's just like Twitter. It actually has a live streaming feed, and you can see transactions being posted.
Why would people want to have that to have that information? Why should anyone go to Blippy and sign up and put that information in?
Well, it's the same mentality as all the Facebook guys have. Is privacy's dead, and that you basically want, and that's what was pretty prevailing in your slides. Is they want a more open, free information type mentality, right?
Share this information with your friends. Your friends comment on your purchases, or people you don't know comment on your purchases. So that enhances, the product and service side of things, and it provides this, collaboration between people. But
From a social engineering aspect, though, imagine the profiling.
Yeah.
You know what the guy likes to read, where he likes to eat, what you know everything about that person before you even attempt to social engineer them. It just makes the job 1,000 times easier.
Absolutely.
I think, to me, that fundamentally, like kind of to the topic of you guys' podcast, is that a lot of this comes down to the fact that the providers of these networks, fundamentally, everybody in this community, when what Zuckerberg or whatever comes out and says privacy is dead, we're all shocked. How dare you, say that? But that's because that's the type of people we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we always operate that way on, this pervasive like paranoia. But we are, 5%ers, 10%ers, the way that most people operate. So when Blippy, first, goes live, we all look at that. That's just retarded. Who would actually do that? Do you really want to, have this, social network that says that you went to the grocery store? Why would you want to share that information? But there's thousands of people that sign up for that network that think that's the coolest thing ever, that they can tell their friends whether they went to Banana Republic yesterday or to, bought something on Amazon. Like that's a feature that apparently the average person seems to want.
But see, I think that makes sense though, because if you look at consumer culture and how people buy shirts with the different brands of the stores that they wear, they make sure that they're advertising and to get that what do they get out of that? Credibility or
Yeah.
whatever. Show how much bling they can.
What'd you
carry.
get at Hot Topic yesterday, man?
Exactly.
I want to know.
I still don't get it. I still don't get it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's because you actually think from a security point of mind. You know, you're not the kind of person that wants to tweet about the sandwich you had for lunch or
Right.
something. These people are the ones who want to share everything on earth with their friends.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, to circle back to like the basic question of, what is the largest, problem with social networks? To me, the biggest fundamental problem with sort of all of this, and people made it, and Tom, just a minute ago made the point that it's so pervasive now, right? That it's not just, used to be like sort of pure play social networks. So, things like, initially MySpace and Orkut and things like that. Now you're seeing a social component to like everything, right? So your YouTube vids friend my YouTube vids, and then that becomes a social network on top of that app. And now with Blippi, now consumer culture becomes a social network, right?
Yeah.
On top of itself. Like, to me, the fundamental problem is the nature of apparently the average first world consumer and the way that they operate. People seem to think that that's normal, healthy, and the Zuckerbergs of the world think we're all insane. that we're freaked out by that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I do a lot of speaking with a lot of local user groups, and one of them is a social media club. So these are marketing people, PR people, the average Joe social media user. And it's amazing that they look at me like I'm on crack. I mean, I tell them, I give them a presentation on how to use Twitter, more securely. And they're like, wow, I didn't know that could happen to me on a social network. Like, seriously? Really? Everyone, I asked, how many people use the same password for all their social networks, and everyone raised their hand. I mean, this is the average Joe user that we're talking about. We are definitely the exception.
Yeah.
And it's the same problem as when you talk to companies in general about security stuff. Well, why am I a target? Why are we of interest to Russian bot masters? Why do they care about us? We're look, I'm just some random guy. Why does anybody care what I bought on Amazon? Or whatever. But one of the points that I've made lately is that the economies in the third world and things like Nigeria and other places, right? If I can graft $10K out of you, that's a year's salary.
Yeah.
That's your Hot Topic purchases are of interest to me. If I'm somebody who's doing 419 or spearfishing or something against these specific human targets, right?
Yeah. Not only that, but I read a site. It was about it was a news site. Talked about a woman who worked for a bank, and she talked about a vacation she was taking. She wanted to go see the Eiffel Tower, and it was the first time ever in her life she was going to France, and she went and she bought all these things, and she talked about everything she bought, talked about where she bought it, when her vacation started, when it was going to end, and somebody was trolling these sites, and they found her address, and then the day she left, they went with a moving truck, and they began to move all of her stuff out of her house. And people in the neighborhood, she's gone, so they don't know. Yeah. I mean, they come in a moving truck, they open her door, they pick the lock, and then they took 5 days of going back and moving things out of this woman's house. And then she comes home to an empty home. Yeah. And she's like, how did this happen? Well, you put everything on the social media site saying when you're going to be gone and how long you're going to be gone for.
Well, that's just a prime example of how you can even use that during a penetration test or when you're going and targeting an organization. I mean, there's so much information that you can learn about a specific individual that you might be targeting. I mean, say, you go and you harvest email addresses and those type of things from an organization. You find them on Twitter. I mean, you automatically have a pretty good history of what they're doing. You can kind of associate with them already. So you can almost break down that barrier of trying to establish trust because you know so much about them. So when you call them and you're trying to SE them, I mean, you already have something that you can establish and relate to them on and actually start, building that trust relationship to where you can actually own them.
Yeah, and let's actually take that a step further. Elwood, relate the story about Google, because you did that really well.
Right. Well, there's all that talk about China getting hacked by Google, that sort of thing. One of the interesting stories that I've heard come out of that, and who knows how much of this is FUD and how much of this is true.
Google getting hacked by
Yeah,
China.
unless
Google
you
getting
have
hacked by China.
No,
unless you have
Google
intel
getting
that we
hacked
don't
by
have.
China?
Yeah.
No, because good for them if they went ahead and counterattacked afterwards. That's awesome.
There you go. Now, I've been around Relic for too long.
Yeah.
this is what happens. Anyways, one of the interesting things about these attacks that I've read is employees at Google were targeted. They pulled out information about those employees. then looked at who those employees' friends were, attacked and compromised those friends, and then used the accounts of the friends to compromise the employees at Google. And it completely makes sense to go down that route. But then how do you protect yourself against that as an organization? How do you protect yourself against that sort of threat?
Ban social networks.
Kill your friends.
Yeah. Maddie's solution is kill your friends. Please don't do that.
He is from Israel. So.
Yeah. The infidel.
That's the interesting thing, because we all leap to, I was having this conversation last night. Like, we all leap to immediately that it's a technical answer to the problem. Why the hell does Google run an IE7 or 6 or whatever? Why aren't they running Chrome? What's wrong with Come on, guys. Or on Windows in the first place. Come on. Aren't you supposed to be running Chrome OS with Chrome? I mean, wouldn't that be the company policy? One would think. It's like if you heard that MacBooks got owned inside Microsoft, you'd be like, what?
Right.
But we all think about the technical pieces of it. And I had heard, Jim, the exact same kind of story, that it was there were like 30 targets, and those 30 targets got extremely legit looking comms from people they knew, not spoofed emails, not anything else, but individuals they knew coming from like my cousin, or whatever, that said, hey, check out this PDF. So we all immediately jumped to, damn it, Adobe, everybody should be using, Foxit now. That's the answer, and we all need to, block PDFs at the gateway, or we need to do, this and that. But the fundamental problem is the human problem, right? I mean, that's
but I don't know if the answer, Dave, is block social networks, because, on some sense, social networks are very valuable for a business and the way that they connect people, but it's how they're used.
And let me ask you a question.
Exactly,
The same exact thing can happen again with a specifically targeted attack like that. I mean, how are you gonna educate your users and not to trust a friend that sends a link to you that has a PDF on it?
I agree.
I mean, if you send me a link saying, "Hey, dude, check out this PDF," what am I gonna do?
Right, you're gonna open it.
I'm gonna open it.
I know. I agree.
I mean, because I trust you. I know you.
Right.
Wait,
hang on.
That's D. Kennedy at.
Yeah. You would actually open a PDF for anybody?
Not anymore.
Hang on. I gotta turn the podcast over. I gotta send something.
No, but I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I mean, in some aspects, yeah, it can be, combined with user awareness and trying to train the employees. But when it comes down to it, is users are probably one of our most number one problems within any type of corporation. I mean, they're constantly going to sites they shouldn't be. They're downloading things they shouldn't be. So, I mean, you can solve a lot of the problems from a technology perspective. You can really lock down the users. And if you're worrying about 0 days, then you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Right.
And, if you're blocking the social networking sites, I mean, let me ask you a question. What value does a company get out of a social networking site, aside from it being like a marketing or something like that? What does me blogging or saying, hey, my newest blog about the social engineering toolkit is out, what value does my company get from it?
I mean, we got two pros here. What is the value for social networks in the company?
I'm actually helping develop the social media policy where I work at, and luckily they've asked InfoSec to be plugged in to the whole process, which is kind of rare in a lot of companies. But luckily we're plugged in, and marketing and PR have come to us and say, hey, we want to use Twitter, we want to use LinkedIn and Facebook to either market our products or to recruit people or things like that. What are the security risks? What do we need to do? And I think it's going to be different for every organization. So I work for a large financial institution, and we have issues with regulations. So because we have all these regulations and regulators telling us what to do, we have to. It's a very fine line of what we can do or what we can't do.
Look, but it's the same point. It's a very, very small portion of your company that really needs to use it.
And you have to put monitoring around that.
Or you sandbox them, so they're in their own network that they have to terminal services to, or something like that. And
right.
some sort of aspect. I mean, you can put technology controls in place to at least reduce the risk and reduce the damage of it. If you have heavy monitoring on it, then a breach is occurring. Then hey, you're winning half the battle.
Also by policy. So we tell users, if you're going to comment about the company's business on, say, Facebook, these are the guidelines that you must follow. And luckily, I've kind of built a little monitoring program around that. So, when somebody posts something about, the bank on Facebook, I'm going to get an alert, or it's going to come up my monitoring tool, and I can see what was posted. So, you got to kind of balance the monitoring with the policy. And you got to think of the fact that people are going to access Facebook from at home on their
Right.
iPhones, Blackberries.
That was my point. Is that
exactly
just
what
because they might not do it at work, but I go home and I'm the secretary. I
It
type
doesn't matter
in my
anymore.
job and where I work.
Yeah, but
not that
that's-
I'm doing it at work,
Yeah.
but as a social engineer, I can still get that information
It
on you.
absolutely has to be a combination. I mean, you have to have a clear, definitive policy on it, but at the same time, I mean, you can always lock down your individual laptop so that they can't go to
Right.
Facebook.
Right.
I mean, if it's a corporate
That's
computer, put
Yeah.
something on there that doesn't allow them to go there.
That is based purely on the assumption that the attack vector is via that
Right.
network.
Yes.
So that person, let's say you ban it completely, and well, and a couple of things too. And I having been like on the other side of the fence in the corporate infosec, I think that most of the time when you just say no, you're probably doing it wrong. Because what tends to happen when you take that kind of line is that your users just find a path around it, right?
They do.
I mean, you know, we all fight that all the time. You know, you have to, if enough people want this, whatever it is, right? You have to find a way to do it in the right way, right? Whatever that way is, and there may not be an easy way for social networks to do that. It may not even be possible, but they go home, you know, and they're still going to get on Facebook, and guess what? Which is retarded to me, but they're going to join the group on Facebook called, you know, Bank of America.
Yep.
You know, and they're going to put that in their freaking profile on Facebook. So like
Exactly.
that,
Yeah, but
telling
that's-
people not to do that, telling
That's
people
less.
to use
That's
it.
less. I mean,
Right way.
it's more potentially information disclosure about the company or them compromising their own home, you know, machine. See if you.
I mean, using
most
their
cases-
company email would definitely be a higher step up the
That's
ladder
where you
in
can
a
back it
bad
up
way.
again, but that's where you can back it up with policy, and then you completely
Right.
restrict social networking sites. I mean, again, whenever you can say no, it's a very good stance to have because you don't have to have it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you
It's less
restrict,
of an attack vector.
if
Now, if
you-
your company and business absolutely requires it, I understand.
but if you restrict a social network, let's say like you say Facebook, I can't access it from your network.
Right.
But on my Facebook account, I have chris@yourcompany.com as my email address. Now, as a social engineer, I don't need you to go to Facebook at work.
No.
What I have is I have your email
Well,
address.
here,
You know,
Well, what I'm saying is you
here's
back
the
that up with
scenario.
policy.
No,
Okay, so the policy says you cannot use your.
Corporate email,
Yeah.
or you can't use your whatever. I
Your
mean,
policy says to me, your corporate social network policy says that you do not represent our company
Right.
on social network X or Y
Right.
unless you work for marketing
Correct.
and you
Yes.
have
Right.
controls. You have
Exactly.
Magic Kingdom. So
and
you
it's a
can't
very
go-
heavily monitored
Yeah.
aspect of it.
You guys have probably seen that. Like there used to be an account for, it was like I want to say it was for Google, it was for somebody, but it was like CBS commits on Twitter. They set up you might know what I'm talking about. They set up something that like tweeted every time they did a CBS commit. It was like, great job, Bob, you know, and just, they thought it was cool. And eventually the rest of the company's like, no, you know, you can't do that.
Did you see what happened
Yeah,
with the
so
Best
you
Buy
have
Geek
to-
Squad?
Oh yeah, and they're
Yeah,
and
same
that
thing.
how did that not have the mark of fail like stamped on it?
Tell the story.
Right.
Well, go ahead. I'm not 100% familiar with it, so
What was
it's been a while ago.
I mean, they basically said random people on Geek Squad could like they gave them all a shared freaking account and
That's
told them
right.
that they could all just answer random questions. And so you take some 16-year-old kid that's like working Friday nights at Best Buy and you give him this freaking Twitter account, and so they end up like trolling people and randomly making like, you know, racist comments or something. They something on behalf of the company, like, oh, okay, maybe our embrace of social media should be like a little more cautious than.
And that's what you're saying. I mean, you don't have to definitively say no on it, but
Yeah,
it has
you
to be
don't-
very
you
controlled.
don't-
manner. It has to be a
Let me
very,
throw out
very
a scenario
controlled
though. A recent pen test that I was involved in, I was able to obtain a company directory. Look up every single employee in the company directory on sites like Facebook, LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
One of the things I found was I found an individual user had a Facebook account, listed her birth date. Didn't list her company name, didn't list anything like that, but I knew based on proximity and location where she lived, where the company is, I knew this was the same woman, had her birth date. Birth date just happened to be the very next weekend. You know, just it was like the Monday. This is on a Thursday. The birth date was going to be on a Monday. So obviously, I go ahead and I set up I use Set, you know, to set up and use a
Shameless
a little-
plug.
I tried to use other products for this scenario and didn't work at all. But when I used Set, it did. So that worked out great. But I send her an e-card. She goes to the site. She tries to get the e-card.
Yeah.
I send it from her sister, you know, her sister's account. She tries to access the e-card. Well, it just so happens to drop a shell on it, and I have it there. Now, how would preventing access to social media from the company or having a policy, how would a company protect themselves from that sort of attack? You know, I got walked right in based on the fact that she had her birth date
Sure.
on her account.
And
How do you enforce any sort of
I'll tell you how. Because the way that set works is through a Java applet attack or client-side attack. So you have a proper patch management process, and you restrict Java to where it doesn't run the applets. I mean, that attack's not going to be successful. But I mean, again, we're being in any type of corporations, we're always on a reactive stance.
Right.
So it's always like, hey, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. When you can do a lot of the solutions just by really limiting what the user can do. I mean, to be honest with you, and this is going to sound absolutely horrible, and everybody's going to disagree with me on this, but I don't even think anybody in the company should be able to browse the internet. Why does everybody need to be online all the time? Just give them sites that are for business, and that's it.
So
You're like now the security Nazi.
I wonder what company that is, so they can like take that off my list of any potential.
No one's going to want to work in
Yeah, he's the security Nazi. One of Dave's employees is here. I feel sorry for you.
Now,
He's giving a Commodore 64.
but something that I pointed out on a lot of the red teams where we've done the same kind of thing. So along that same line, right? So somehow you're going to presumably, so if you've got a Jim O'Gorman, well, good luck. How many of those are there on Facebook? There's like 10. There's like a bunch.
Yeah,
of
you've looked for
surprisingly.
me.
Yeah. Yeah, you're all private. I can't add you at all. So, but if you look at like company X or Y, the odds are pretty good that, and so we were talking about this the other day that Maltego found me like 8 targets via LinkedIn. And what I then did was go through and define from those, like, I think it just started with like one email address for company X or Y that was my target, and that gave me that their naming convention was first name dot last name. Right. So from that, then I got another like 85 targets from Facebook groups that were affiliated with that company and LinkedIn profiles that didn't immediately jump out. It wasn't like foo@company.com was in a Google search, but I was able to find it, right? So predictable, and maybe I'm being overly simplistic, but I think one of the recommendations that I do make to people is predictable email naming conventions are a bad idea. First name dot middle initial dot last name in and of itself would have probably lowered my success rate a fair bit, because maybe of those 85, maybe 5 of those I could also get a middle initial out. Nobody, I mean, it's maybe, like I say, I was just saying that technical solutions aren't the solution to the human problem, but that, I mean, it would raise the bar for me a fair bit.
Yeah, I mean, but again, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's whatever controls we can put in place around trying to prevent an attack from occurring. I mean, it's as best you're going to do. I mean, a focused attack is always going to find something, and it's a matter of if you can detect it happening and if you can prevent it from further spreading.
And the more that you raise the bar on how much of that is easily accessible, the lower my success rate is. So
you reduce your threat posture.
We typically see on Spearfish 50% success. So out of 80 targets, usually 40 we're going to get a bite on. So if you figure I got 2, okay, I got maybe and the stats get less likely to pan out that way if it's a small target base. The fewer targets I have, though, the less likely I am to be successful. So the more you can do to make that difficult. And then on the other end, like you're talking about signed applets and all these other things, the less likely a payload unfriendly environment on the other side. You may have vuln X or Y, you may have JBIG or this PM.
But all those overlap and reverse.
Can I land a shell out of it? Yeah. So
one of the things we do, because we have a group that needs to access social media for business purposes, so the marketing, the PR groups and such, we actually created a Citrix server, and we actually have them go through a Citrix session where they're allowed to access social media, and that's basically like an environment that we can wipe once a week or whatever, and it's not touching their machine. So that's been one.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Technical controls. That's one. I mean, it's not going to kill the the spear phishing issue or anything like that, but things like Koopface and other types of social network worms. That's one.
To get that you can
one
have
control.
it. Not a big deal. Yeah.
When you guys are doing pen test or social engineering audits, do you find that people are generally who they say they are online? Like, you have all this information you gather from social networks, but are you finding that they really are, or is the majority of people kind of faking out?
I'm not even sure you actually are who you say you are.
Online, I'm definitely not. I'm like a 21-year-old girl online, so I'm definitely not who I am right now.
10,000 friends on Facebook.
I'm actually attractive online, okay?
Me and Chris talk a lot, so.
Yeah.
I find the average user doesn't lie about anything. They just let it all out.
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, it's usually your security people that make stuff up. I mean, on Facebook, all my security friends, their birthday's April 1st. I mean,
Right.
and,
Yeah, your 5-10 percenters, like we were talking about, those aren't your targets. And actually, like along that
Yeah.
same line, my Superfish that I was talking about with like these 85, there was like 30 of those that were IT people. I just took them right out of my target list.
Right.
I'm not going to mess with them. And
Right.
I know they're going to be thinking that way, but yeah, no, most average users of these networks and people in general, right? I mean, if you think about SE and why it works, it's because people ultimately want to be helpful. They want to help you out, whether it's letting you inside the building or whether it's responding to your friend request on a given network, right? People like to do that. All of this is just about giving them an opportunity to do what they already want to do. Unless they're New Yorkers. Wired a little different, yeah.
Yeah, the success rate for New Yorkers are like 10%.
Yeah, there you go.
Power to us New Yorkers. Yeah, I kind of felt the same way that people online generally are honest unless they're in our field and they feel that there's something to be gained by not being truthful. How does that affect though the information gathering then for us? Like this is really the topic of what we're getting at is we're using social networks to gather information so we can enhance our ability to be successful in our social engineering audits. Which we've heard a lot about that. We kind of really touch on a lot of deep topics, but.
Well, let me ask a question too before someone answers that is,
Sure.
a lot of companies spend quite a bit of time investing in user awareness. Is it effective? I mean, have you guys ever ran through a user awareness program that's been
That's a good
effective
question.
of training the users?
One of the best quotes I've seen about user awareness training in the last month or so, and I'm overusing this like crazy lately, but I love the quote, is if awareness training worked, no one would eat fast food, everyone would work out every day, no one would smoke, but...
So Matt, you want to go out and have a smoke real quick?
Yeah, just after McDonald's.
Just after McDonald's.
No, but I mean, that's where I go to the point of, I mean, if you can't fix it technically, I mean, how else are you going to do it? I mean, obviously you can put policy in place, that they don't need to violate this and things like that. But if you're not restricting the user and and you're doing user awareness, I mean, it's apparently somewhat effective maybe you get a 10% clip.
I mean, Tom, you mentioned you're in these groups, you do speaking at, I mean, does educating the user actually lower the statistics of negative incidents for social engineering?
I think it does a little bit. I think making people aware by showing them real concrete examples that somewhat shock them. The shock value of awareness training, I think sometimes works, but it's not going to be for the majority of people. I think I may have, one or two people in a group that I spoke to may actually go back and change their password or do something like that.
Right.
I think it comes down to the user actually caring about security, at least in a little bit, and if you can just somehow influence them, you're SEing them, right, by security awareness in some aspect, to do things better. It's a mixed bag. It really is.
Yeah,
That'd be an easy
that's
article.
where-
Social engineer your users to be secure.
Really. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, and that's where it goes to it. I mean, I really think that technology has to have a big back. I mean, let's take web application flaws, for example. I would deploy web application firewalls uniformly across the board. I mean, is the average script kiddie going to be able to get past that? No,
Probably not.
Typically not, unless if it's a good web application firewall.
Unless you're
So you
using
automatically elevate
Fast
your bar.
Track or set or something like that. Thank
Right.
you
Well,
very
you
much.
automatically elevate your bar to a certain small set of people that can actually bypass that and do whatever they want to with it. So it's the same thing for users. You hinder the users. You stop the reverse payloads from being able to connect outbound. You really restrict the users of what sites they can go to. You have a very small set of people that can go to those sites, and it's really in a very much high security zone where there's monitoring and a bunch of other things going on. I mean, you really reduce your overall footprint and your threat exposure to it, and you can do it from a technology perspective. Now, again, I mean, obviously there still has to be a process in place, and in any type of security program is always going to be checking how your security program is working and how you can improve on it. But at the same time, you can really, really reduce your threat posture from technology.
So I tend to be, there's a lot of confirmation bias on my part as a pen tester in this answer. But I tend to be a firm believer in the corrective power of shame. And so what I find is that companies that have both either, and I always tell people, like I make that recommendation, both actually too along the same line on any kind of general red teaming or any kind of pen testing work at all. The companies I see that do better on pens than any others are the ones that have their own internal pen teams and that are doing that.
Yeah.
And most of the fundamental problems are, just to go back to like the whole, just to touch on Google CN and stuff like that, the wake-up call of all that was, hey, guess what? We're at war. You guys didn't notice? Because we did. We've known that for 10 years, since, Titan Rain days, that guess what? We're at war. This is it. And I don't want to disparage people who are in the field being shot at and dying. I'm not undermining that, but this is a front of a global war between multiple, first world societies over who's in control of information and data, right? That's what's going on right now. But people don't really see that in that kind of way. They see this as just some kind of stuff the IT guys want to do, right? They're not thinking about it in that kind of way. So actively hitting the users over the head with it, watching slides and videos and things like that, and all the other kind of namby-pamby crap that most people do for their security training programs don't work very well. But guess what? Go fish all your users that are taking your awareness class the night before, and for the beginning of that class, say, hey, guess what? How many of you gave me your password just now, right? Going through and doing that, and I have to, they're a competitive artist, but I'll plug, the fishme.com guys. The cool thing about doing this ongoing exercise of beating your users over the head with that, the best thing about it is, as a CISO, it's the one stat you can show your management that goes like that. It's the only one that doesn't visually come across in audio. It's a stat that goes down. All your other threats, all your other numbers for risk and all that other stuff go up, but that one can go down if you continue to beat your users over the head. So, like I was saying, our 40% success rate, on average for phishes, that might go down to 30, it might go down to 20. So that it becomes, at that point, like a kind of a, God, I don't want to sound like a CISSP here. It becomes a risk management reduction.
Label as a service.
Yeah. Turning it away from you now. No.
It becomes at that point you're reducing the risk. It's like everything we always use. I live in St. Louis, which is we're always like tied for murder capital with like Detroit and a couple other places. But like you live in a high crime city, you learn to do things. Like not leave your GPS on your dashboard. Things like that. So you reduce the risk. That doesn't mean somebody's not going to pop my car, but I'm a less attractive target.
That's you definitely hit on a very good point. Awareness is very effective if something personal happens to them.
I understand.
So if you can embarrass the heck out of them,
my neighbor's car got popped. That's why I do that.
Right.
So how often do you do these, like in your recommendations, do you have these training sessions where, I think that's a great idea, where you humiliate.
Yeah, so we
just like that.
Maddie and I because this happens to me at work every day. The way Maddie trains me is by public humiliation. So
well, here we go.
I want to be able to humiliate others for a living.
So when we have a fish, when we have a fish or a spearfish that's in scope for an engagement, I can't think of a single exception where we haven't won, right? And one, typically for us, that if that's our path in on a red team. That win means we have your source code in your CEO's email inbox, right? Like typically, if we can get to the point of getting inside an enterprise from an external, we're going to win, And so that becomes, the awareness is our brief out, at the end of a pen. We show that to those guys, and I'm not selling our stuff. Please don't mention my company or whatever. What happens though is their eyes just bug out. Oh Jesus, I can't believe Bob clicked on that. And half the time it's C-suite because we'll target. We'll go after 3 or 4 juicy targets. So, somebody in C-suite clicked on that, they're just shaking, they're rattled. And Natron, I think we were talking a story about that. I've had people walk up to me inside companies and say, we hate you. Like you're a sack of crap. But guess what they were talking about at the water cooler that morning? Especially if I can do a mass email. And I did this one like recently for a bank. I did a forged banking transfer email to every employee of that bank. What do you think they were talking about for the rest of that week? Especially when, and you guys can do this internally. It doesn't even have to be.
We do.
It doesn't have to be. You don't have to land shellcode with that.
No.
It can just be a click on that. Yep. But then you send them that email afterwards that shows a graph, or better yet, if you can do it inside and Dave obviously can in your company, the names of all those people, right? If you can do that, you're going to get a huge swell of people really being. You actually touch the problem then.
Yeah, the
way it's a lot easier. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say the way we do it, because I run an internal pen team for a bank, and we actually every quarter send 500 emails, random emails, to just random people in the bank, and they're at the phishing email is different every time, and they click a link. It's tracked on a web server. We don't send any identifying information except for the IP address of the user that clicked the link. They are taken to a awareness web page that we put together that explains the email that they just got with hints of this is a phishing email. These are the things that you need to look for. Blah blah blah. You're not in trouble, but this is they're kind of like, oh crap. Look what I clicked on. This is a test from security, embarrassing them. And then we parse the log and then provide management with the numbers of, okay, this percentage, of users clicked on a link. And then we use that in, general awareness training throughout the year. And then management communicates that down. And we have seen a decrease since we started doing that.
And I'm a big
worked.
advocate of definitely doing that in-house, but I also think that you really have to have a third party come in and just blow it out of the water, because they don't have to deal with the BS and the politics of everybody else. So if you offend somebody else, you offend somebody that doesn't like you or anything like that. I mean, you can go in and just hammer the living daylights out of people, and you don't have to worry about being embarrassed. You can bring a system down that you knew was bad, for a long time. We want that,
We don't typically get that many open scope pens where people are okay with that, but we do get. What I will say is, as a third party, we come in and have a different set of eyes to it, because you're in that environment all the time. One of my favorites, which actually relates to social network stuff, we did a big retail chain that has a lot of kind of, I guess I would say, blue collar employees, like clerks that work at the checkout counters for this particular company. And so we profiled a bunch of our targets, right? And we defined a pretty good meaty target list for a large company. So what we then did was start looking around on social networks for what people talked about that company, what was interesting, what do they want, what do our targets want, get inside their head. And I found this forum where people were talking about working for that company, and there was all these people saying, this place sucks, I hate working here. And they go, can you believe we don't even get an employee discount? So I made an employee discount, So that was my pitch. I said, please sign up for our employee discount. And we got, in that case, an 85 or 90%, success rate for everybody for going through it. It was, please sign up for our new employee discount.
I actually think I clicked that, so.
Sorry.
Wow, yeah, that was effective. Very effective.
And that's the social profiling outside of, and we as a third party were probably more likely to see that than somebody inside the company.
I agree. You definitely have to. I think even being on an internal pen team, we supplement with a third party every year, because it is that good check and balance between what you're doing and what someone just fresh off the street, coming into your network and seeing your people and seeing they will probably see something different than you do, and it's always a good thing.
So, as pen testers, are you guys seeing an increase in companies being interested in social engineering audits? As in the past, it was almost impossible to convince companies that was something they should be paying for.
I have to say that I think it's pretty much becoming a de facto when it comes to a penetration test, at least as far as the past 6 months. I think it's gotten a lot more adoption lately than it ever has before in the past, because it is an important aspect of it. And if you look at how companies are securing their external perimeter, when's the last time you've done an external pen test and you compromise the domain, it's becoming much more challenging with the firewalls and application firewalls and code reviews and security assessments that you get performed. So the option that you have available is the human element and the social engineering aspects that you can do remote and is very successful. I think it's just getting the awareness out to the rest of the companies out there. I think it's definitely plausible. And it's definitely doable, and I think a lot of companies are moving towards that route, but it's still kind of slow.
Yeah, I was reading a report from Gartner, and I don't want me to get the statistic wrong, but it was something like last year, every month, the number of attacks went up by 20%. So it was, it was month one, but every month it increased by 20% over an 8-month span. Of successful social engineering attacks, and that was just in the United States. I can't imagine globally what that number would be. So I think more and more companies are seeing that that hackers at least are taking a rest on just trying to hardcore hack into the networks.
To be honest with you, why even bother? Right. Why even bother going in through a web application and possibly being detected and finding SQL injection and then doing all this crazy stuff and getting access to the underlying operating system when you call somebody up and 10 minutes later you're in it.
Yeah. It's the path of least resistance.
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't, unfortunately, I wouldn't say that the majority of external pens that we do are necessarily that way. I think that, like a lot of people, there are people who want to know what's wrong, and there are people who want to pass an audit. the good customers and the good companies that get that, and the ones that don't. And you look at that, and you can almost probably correlate the people that buy that kind of work from us or from other people, and the people who are going to end in the papers, right? The ones that I guarantee you, Heartland Payment Systems probably never had a full scope, open scope patent. What they did, unfortunately, was
not so good.
Not when they contracted for it, right? But
not one they contracted
they
for.
did not.
Ouch.
They didn't purchase that. But I mean, that's the problem. Is if you're really the whole point of pen testing, whether you're doing it inside a company or outside, the intent of that is supposed to be that it's an attack simulation, that you're simulating the activities that you're encountering day
And that's
by
why
day.
you can't have a no holds. A very restrictive pen test because it doesn't do you any good.
I wish I could.
That's-
I wish I could say that most Fortune 500s work that way, though.
Right, and that's my main gripe with a lot of the compliance and regulatory requirements.
Yeah.
They specifically require it over a specific segment, or a very small niche area.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take into account a no holds barred where, hey, by breaching this system, you get into another system, and then get into another system that gives you full access.
One of the things that I do see, and I've recommended to people a lot, and I see companies that do well over the years doing this kind of thing, is that you have your PCI kind of SAS 70 or whatever pen test / audit thing, and then you have another one that you give the results only to the CISO.
Yep.
There's another one that you do under separate contract, separate cover. That's not the one you give to your auditors. It's not the one that you give to Big Four or whatever. That tells you what's actually wrong. And a good CISO and a good CIO understand that. They want to know what's really screwed
You
up.
realize that
right?
compliance doesn't
Yeah.
secure you, and that compliance is just a check mark for marketing purposes, and the rest of it is just the actual no holds barred pen test.
Yeah.
Here's really what I need to start focusing on
Yeah.
fixing the problems.
But to you guys, to your topic and everything else, that the point of that is that should absolutely include the human element, because it
It
works.
should be any part of
Fantastic.
portion that you want. I mean, anything that you can think of.
Yeah, we've developed our program within the bank that I work at. We do specific red team testing against lines of business. So we take a line of business every quarter and we look at them from every aspect. So from the network, the servers, the applications, and we put in client side social engineering aspects, physical security. So we've got a team of guys that are attacking their web apps, and then we've got another team that's tailgating into their building and then getting in that way and then sharing information back with the team. So it's a true red team assessment. So you're hitting all those different angles. But I guess I'm kind of fortunate that I work for a financial institution that has the capability of building an internal team like that, and we can do that. But those are the type of reports like he was saying, like Sean was saying, that you give to the CISO, and the CISO wants to see that, and he can actually see where the real risk is, and then we can start focusing some attention on those areas to the business, because I think you have to explain the problems to the people that own the business, so the people that are making the money need to understand the threat.
That's why the CSO role is one of the most important roles in an organization. You don't need to be technical. You don't really even need to understand security program. You have to be a very good salesperson.
Yep.
And that's where your meat and potatoes are, and that's where you get your money and funding from. And being able to be a good salesperson, relying on the team underneath is where it's at.
Good stuff, guys. Really. So let me just ask to wrap it up, Sean. If someone wanted to get more information on you or some of the things you talked about, where can they go? What should they?
Add me on Facebook. Honestly, I don't have an answer to that. I
Okay.
really
I don't know
don't.
if you had a site or anything you
No.
wanted to plug in.
I do not.
Okay.
I have no.
So,
I have no.
so come to one of the
marketing.
cons and listen to one of your speeches.
Yeah.
I saw something on DEF CON on you last year, so they can download that.
Yeah, I pretty much I'll come out and do a talk periodically, but yeah, kind of beyond that, I work 80 hours a week doing pen testing. So
Don't call me, I'll call you.
Yeah. And Tom,
I'll fish you.
I know we talked this in the beginning, but they can check out on socialmediasecurity.com.
Yep,
Right?
yep, they can check it out
And it's
there.
I'm sorry.
You want you just
I
keep
thought
why
you were
don't
done. I thought you were
cut them off,
done. I thought
Dave.
you were done. No, you hit a little pause there, so I'm like, okay, I can jump in real
Hey,
quick.
listen,
but
Sack man, it was Tom's turn, okay?
go ahead.
I also do another, besides Security Justice, I do a podcast called socialmediasecurity.com podcast with Kevin Johnson and another guy, Scott Wright, and you can check that out. It's kind of a good mix between technical and
So what I was going to say was,
non-technical stuff. So.
And, next time we have you on, we'll make sure Dave's not here. Okay.
I got to carry a mute button around. That shocks me every time.
Yeah.
Shock collar.
See, when we do this the real way, and we're not all in person, I can mute him because the phone service I use, we just.
That's true.
Although the last time you called in, you were having an EKG, so
Yeah,
that was a little crazy.
Cut from the hospital. So.
Yeah, nice.
No, but I did want to throw out the new website that I launched.
Sackmaniac.
Secmaniac.com.
So that's SACMANIAC.
No, I don't even know. You probably don't want to go to that.
Yeah,
site.
don't go to
I'm
Sackmaniac.
actually
Yeah.
afraid to go there.
Yeah,
So
it's
is
available. Not anymore.
Secmaniac.com. That's SECMANIAC.com.
So you check it out. That's
special
where.
thanks to Musk for that.
And that's where Set will be, and also your other tool. No, just Set.
Just Set.
Just Set.
That's pretty much my my home for blogging. So I'll be
Okay.
doing a lot of blogs on there, and the latest and greatest on Set, as well as anything
Excellent.
else in the security industry.
And of course, we'll have all the updates on Set on socialengineer.org.
Yep.
You can check us out social-engineer.org or on IRC, the Free Node Network, on channel Social Engineer. All of our social media websites, which we join, like Twitter, on Human Hacker. We're not on Facebook, so you can't follow us there.
You are now.
I am now.
I think right now. You just,
Right now, I just-
Somebody
Someone just created my page for me.
What you've been doing, Nick.
I don't think that you can check out the sponsor again on spyassociates.com, and of course we like to always mention that our outro music is Michael Anthony. You can listen to him on ccmixer.org if you like what you hear. Thanks a lot, guys. Tom, Sean, thanks for coming in. Our panel. We also have a whole crew here. Maybe we should just mention we got Raw Jaw. We got some guy I don't know. We got Pure. Well, I'm changing Pure Hate's name to Pure Love because that's all I felt all weekend. Pure Love. We got a girl I don't know. And we got,
It's my wife.
Oh, that's his wife. That's
Yeah.
Tom's wife. We got Tom's wife here, so now we know her. She is Tom's wife. We got Mr. X.
Josh.
He doesn't have snowballs right
He's from Belgium, and he doesn't understand between snowballs and ow, I get hit with a shmoo ball. And I'm not even giving a speech. We got Josh, who unfortunately works for Relic. We're sorry. Dan or Ming. Nick H., which is the only reason why we have this wonderful room here in the restaurant at the Wardman, the Marriott Wardman, where we can record with some semblance of peace and quiet.
Thank you very much to the
Yeah, so that was cool.
Also got Kevin. in the back
Kevin,
there.
he's the guy on the floor that also works with Relic, and we're sorry for that too. And Sub, and then the panel. So we'll see you guys all next month. Thanks again for joining us.
Oh, walk that way. Stay on track. Walk on. Watch your back. Walk on. Stay on track. Walk on. Watch your back. Oh, walk on. Ooh, walk on. Walk on. Walk on. Ooh, when I'm thinking about the times you say, talking about every single day. 2 steps forwards and 1 step back. Walk on. Trying to remain on track. Yeah. Stay on track. Watch your back. 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 Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. You walk up the line. Time after time. Thinking things will stay the same. Now the game isn't played that way. You've got to stay on track. Walk on, watch your back. Walk on, stay on track. Walk on, watch your back. Walk on, looking around you and thinking it's okay. Forgetting about about the things that you did yesterday. But oh, if you only knew that the game isn't played that way. Stay on track, walk on, watch your back, walk on. Stay on track, walk on, watch your back, walk on. Stay on track, walk on, watch your back, walk on. Stay on track, walk on, watch your back, walk on. Stay on track, walk on, watch your back, walk on. Stay on track, walk on, watch your back, walk on. Stay on track, walk on, watch your back, walk on. Stay on track, walk on, watch your back, walk on.